Hi everyone, it's Brittany, and today I want to point something out because I think a lot of people feel like they're stuck in the same place. So, the past isn't real. Everything is happening now. You're not the character, and that thoughts aren't necessarily true. That's great. But why are you still listening to them? Seriously, why are you still taking them to be facts? Why does a thought show up and immediately become evidence? A thought appears that says, it's been years, and before you even notice what happened, you've already accepted it. You've emotionally entered the reality of it and started feeling discouraged because of it. But wait, what actually happened? A thought appeared. That's it. You say it's been years and nothing's changing. Okay. But is that actually true? Or is it just a thought appearing now, saying it's been years and nothing's changing? I know most of you already agree with this intellectually. If I asked you, where does the past exist? You'd say, in memory. If I asked, where is memory appearing? You'd say, in awareness, now. And if I asked, is the past actually here? Most of you would say no. So then why is memory, which is just a thought appearing now, being used as evidence? Why does a thought about what supposedly happened 5 years ago get to tell you who you are? Who made it the authority? Look at how silly this actually is. A memory shows up, okay? Maybe it's a breakup or a fight or something that happened when you were 10 years old. The memory appears now. Then, immediately, a thought says, see, this is why relationships are hard. Or, see, this is why people leave me. But what just happened? A present thought showed up and started talking about another present thought. You weren't transported into the past. A memory appeared now. And then another thought appeared and called the memory evidence. And that somehow became reality. That's what I want you to notice. I don't actually think that most people are identifying as the character anymore. The trap is more subtle. Now you'll tell me, I know it's the character. But then the character says, it's been years, nothing is changing. This means I'll always struggle, and you automatically agree with it. What I see happening is people stop identifying as the character and immediately start identifying with the character's perspective. You can call it the character all day long, but that doesn't mean you stop believing what it's saying. Look at how much time people spend trying to understand stories. Why did they do that? What did they mean? What are they thinking? What happens next? Notice how the mind is always trying to solve the story, as if understanding it will finally make everything okay. As if one more explanation will finally produce certainty. But has it? Has understanding ever been enough? Or does the mind just move on to the next question? the next thing to figure out. That's what the mind does. It wants to know. It wants to explain. It wants certainty. And it keeps promising that certainty is just one more answer away. But it never gets there. It just keeps searching. This is why I tell people to stop trying so hard to understand everything. It's not that understanding is wrong. It's just that most of the time, it's another way of staying attached to the story. The mind says, I just want clarity. Meanwhile, it's replaying the same situation for the 400th time, trying to squeeze certainty out of uncertainty, trying to solve something that doesn't need to be solved. Maybe a text doesn't come. Oh, they don't care. Says who? Maybe money changes. Oh, this means I'm not safe. Says who? How do you know? Not what do you think, but how do you actually know? Most people never stop and ask that question. They just accept the narration. And honestly, who said the narrator knows anything? Who said it's reliable? I mean, look at how often it's been wrong. And yet every new thought arrives and automatically gets treated like an expert. Even right now, as you're listening to this, notice what's happening. Yeah, but my situation is different. Yeah, I get it, but this doesn't apply to me. Okay, yeah, Brittany, but my SP actually left. Notice what just happened. A thought appeared. And how fast did the mind try to make it special and say that it was a fact? That's what I'm talking about. Not yesterday, not 5 years ago, right now. This is happening in real time. And the same thing happens with appearances. When I say thought, most of you immediately imagine words in the head, the inner voice or mental chatter, stuff that sounds like, I'm rejected, it's been years, nothing is changing. Most people hear something like this and think, okay, well, thoughts are one thing, but reality, that's another. But who told you that? That's you as the authority, creating a false division. It's just a thought. The assumption hiding underneath all of this is that there are thoughts, and then there's this separate thing called the real world. So let's look at that too. What if thought is doing a lot more than narrating reality? What if thought is also dividing reality? Something appears, and then thought says, that's a body. That's money. That's the physical world. That's imagination. That's me. That's not me. And because those labels have seemingly been repeated for so long, nobody questions them. They just feel true. But how do you know where the body ends and the world begins? How do you know where awareness ends and reality begins? How do you know that they are separate things at all? Well, thought tells you, and because you haven't stopped to question it, you experience that separation. But guess what? The body, the mind, imagination, physical reality, the 3D, the five senses, they're all just thoughts appearing in the same place. Awareness. And once those thoughts are treated as separate things, you start experiencing them as if they are actually separate. But Brittany, I can see my reality. What are you actually seeing? You're not seeing rejection. You're not seeing abandonment or lack. You're noticing shapes, colors, movement, light, sound. And then thought comes along and says, that's my body. That's another person. That's my SP. That's my bank account. That's the physical world. But those are labels and interpretations. More thoughts. And because the narration happens so quickly, it feels like reality. But it isn't. It's commentary. One person sits alone in an apartment and thinks, oh, this is so peaceful. While another person sits alone in the exact same apartment and thinks, oh, I'm alone and unwanted. Same apartment, different narrator. The suffering wasn't hidden inside the apartment. The suffering came from the story being told about it. And just to be clear, guys, I'm not asking you to force a new story. No. And I'm not asking you to flip or fight thoughts. I'm simply asking you to question why thought keeps getting treated like an authority in the first place. People hear something like this and immediately think, well, so what am I supposed to tell myself instead? But the problem isn't that you have some wrong narrative. It's that you've been treating narratives as facts. Right now, there might be a thought saying, okay, but my body is obviously real, or, all right, well, the 3D is obviously a different thing. But look at that. How do you know? Not what you've been taught, not what everybody else says. How do you know directly? Or is another thought showing up and explaining reality again? Because that's all I've been pointing to this entire time. But Brittany, it feels so real. Of course it feels real. You've been agreeing with it as if it is. But what if you stopped? Just notice what happens. Most people are looking for some massive spiritual breakthrough. Meanwhile, the thing keeping all of this going is ridiculously simple. A thought appears. You agree with it. And then you experience the consequences of that agreement. And because the consequences feel real, you assume the thought was true. So if agreement is what keeps it going, what happens when you stop agreeing? All right, guys, I am just going to leave it here today. I hope that you found this helpful. And again, just to be clear, I am not speaking of what the thoughts say, of what the five senses show, not any of that. I'm really just asking you to look at those things and recognize when you, as awareness, are automatically accepting it as if it's a fact. That's it. Okay? So thank you all so much for being here with me. I hope that you all are doing well. I love you all so much. Thank you so much for all of your emails and your comments. You guys are the best. I have missed you, and I will see you soon.